I'm Dr. Sandra Whitmore, and I've spent 23 years as a cardiologist watching this exact pattern destroy the blood pressure efforts of good, diligent, careful people who are doing their honest best. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what that hidden enemy is, where it is hiding in your kitchen, and precisely what to do about it. If this channel is new to you, please hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you real, research-backed medical truth for free. Before we go any further, I want you to understand something that will completely reshape the way you look at food for the rest of your life. When researchers and public health experts study where Americans actually get the majority of their sodium, not where people think they get it, but where they actually get it, the number that comes back is staggering. More than 70% of the sodium that Americans consume every single day does not come from the salt shaker. It does not come from sprinkling salt on eggs or salting pasta water or seasoning a steak. It comes from packaged foods, processed foods, canned foods, and restaurant meals. Foods that have already been loaded with sodium before they ever arrive in your kitchen. The salt shaker, the one your doctor told you to put away, the one you've been keeping off your table for years out of discipline and dedication, that thing is almost entirely irrelevant. Eliminating every grain of salt you personally add to your meals would reduce your daily sodium intake by less than 11%. Less than 11%. The remaining 89% is already inside the food you are buying and eating. And that is the salt bomb nobody is talking about. Now here's where this gets critically important for people over 60 specifically, because I need to explain something that most physicians don't take enough time to walk their patients through. And it is the physiological reason why, the older you are, the more dangerous hidden sodium becomes. Let me tell you about Margaret first, because her story starts exactly where this conversation needs to start. The first hidden salt bomb, bread. Margaret was 68 years old, a retired elementary school teacher from Denver, Colorado. She was one of the most thoughtful, organized patients I have ever had the privilege of caring for. She brought a handwritten list of everything she ate to every single appointment. She was meticulous. She was earnest. She was trying so hard. Her blood pressure was 155/92, on one medication. She had been on it for 2 years. We'd adjusted the dose once. Nothing had moved in the right direction for months. She was frustrated. She told me at one appointment, with her voice cracking just slightly, "I don't understand what I'm doing wrong." I asked her to walk me through a typical Tuesday. Breakfast first. She said she had 2 slices of whole wheat toast with a little bit of natural peanut butter, a glass of orange juice. Lunch. A turkey sandwich on 2 more slices of whole wheat bread with lettuce, tomato, and a drizzle of light Italian dressing. A bowl of chicken noodle soup from a can because she had a slight cold that week. Dinner. Baked chicken with roasted vegetables. A small whole wheat dinner roll on the side. She was proud of that day. She considered it a model day. I took out a piece of paper and we did the math together. 2 slices of whole wheat toast in the morning, approximately 280 milligrams of sodium. 2 more slices at lunch for the sandwich, another 280 milligrams. Her dinner roll, 150 milligrams. From bread alone, before a single other thing had crossed her lips, Margaret had already consumed 710 milligrams of sodium, nearly half her daily recommended target for someone with high blood pressure. From bread, plain, ordinary, whole wheat bread that came with a fiber claim on the front of the package. Here is the thing that absolutely floors people when I explain this. Bread and rolls are the single largest contributor to sodium intake in the American diet. Not chips, not pretzels, not fast food, bread. This is not a fringe opinion. This is documented by the Centers for Disease Control, the Food and Drug Administration, and independent nutrition researchers who have studied decades of American dietary data. A single slice of commercially baked bread can contain anywhere from 100 to 230 milligrams of sodium, depending on the brand. 2 slices twice a day adds up. And here's the insidious part. Bread doesn't taste salty. That sodium is functionally invisible on your palate. You eat it without registering it, meal after meal, day after day, week after week. Margaret was shocked. She had been thinking of bread as a benign background food, a vehicle, something to hold her sandwich together. She had never thought of it as a sodium source. And she is not alone. In over 2 decades of practice, I can count on one hand the number of patients who came to me already aware that bread was silently contributing to their blood pressure problem. We made one change immediately. Margaret switched to a low-sodium bread option, one of the brands available right there at her regular King Soopers grocery store in Denver, where some whole wheat options carry as little as 35 to 45 milligrams of sodium per slice. The difference was immediate. Within 5 weeks, her systolic blood pressure had dropped 9 points. 9 points. From bread. That is the magnitude of what a single hidden sodium source can do when you finally address it. Why sodium hits harder after 60. Before I go any further, I need to explain the physiology, because I want you to understand not just what is happening, but why it is happening, and why people over 60 are uniquely and disproportionately vulnerable to this problem in a way that younger adults simply are not. Here's the mechanism, and I want to walk through this step by step because it is important. When you consume sodium, regardless of whether it came from a salt shaker or a can of soup, your bloodstream absorbs it. Your blood becomes slightly saltier. Your body, in its constant effort to maintain chemical balance, responds by drawing water into your bloodstream to dilute that extra sodium. More water in your bloodstream means a higher total blood volume. More blood volume means your heart is pushing a larger amount of fluid through the same network of arteries and blood vessels. More pressure against those vessel walls. Blood pressure rises. Your kidneys are responsible for clearing that excess sodium out of your blood. In a younger adult with healthy kidneys, that process is relatively efficient. You consume excess sodium, your kidneys work to excrete it, and balance is gradually restored. But here's what changes with age. After 60, kidney function naturally declines. The kidneys become less efficient at filtering and excreting sodium. This means that when an older adult consumes excess sodium, it stays in the bloodstream longer. The volume-raising effect lasts longer. And the blood pressure elevation it causes is both more pronounced and more persistent. There is a term for this that cardiologists and nephrologists use: salt sensitivity. Research shows clearly that salt sensitivity increases significantly with age. Among younger adults, roughly 1/3 are meaningfully salt sensitive, meaning their blood pressure responds noticeably to sodium intake. Among people over 60 with high blood pressure, that number is estimated at closer to 60%. That means that for the majority of the people watching this video right now, the sodium hiding in your packaged foods is having a far greater effect on your blood pressure than it would have had on those same foods when you were 40. Your arteries, are also stiffer now than they were 3 decades ago. That is not a criticism. It is simple biology. Arterial stiffness is a natural part of aging. But stiff arteries amplify the pressure impact of every extra milliliter of blood volume. The same hidden sodium that might raise a 40-year-old's systolic pressure by 3 points can raise yours by 7, or 10, or more. This is why your doctor keeps adjusting your medication and wondering why the numbers aren't responding the way they expect. It may not be the medication that's falling short, it may be the hidden sodium that's undoing everything the medication is trying to accomplish. The second hidden salt bomb: canned and packaged soups. Let me tell you about Frank, 71 years old, a retired electrician from Cleveland, Ohio. Frank was a practical man. He liked simple food, predictable routines, and no-nonsense explanations. He came to my office carrying a printout of his blood pressure log. He had been measuring it every single morning for 6 months. The numbers ranged from 147 to 164 systolic, always above 145, never budging below it regardless of his medication. Frank's diet, as he described it, sounded perfectly reasonable. He had eggs and coffee in the morning. For lunch, he heated up a can of soup, usually chicken noodle or tomato soup, or sometimes a hearty vegetable beef variety. Nothing fancy, he told me, just something warm and filling. Dinner was whatever his wife Patricia made, usually some kind of meat with potatoes and a salad. He didn't eat chips, he didn't drink soda, he thought he was doing fine. I asked Frank to bring me the labels from his 3 favorite soup cans. He actually went home and did it, bless him. He came back the next week with 3 labels in a Ziploc bag. We looked at them together. The chicken noodle soup had 890 milligrams of sodium per serving, but the can listed 2 servings. Frank ate the whole can. That's 1,180 milligrams of sodium in one lunch. The tomato soup he sometimes alternated with 1,100 milligrams per can. And it was marketed on the front label as a classic comfort food with a little heart next to the name. The vegetable beef, which he considered his healthiest option because of the word vegetable in the title, had 2,400 milligrams per can. Frank was consuming, just at lunch alone on his soup days, between 1,100 and 1,180 milligrams of sodium in a single meal. The recommended daily limit for someone with high blood pressure is 1,500 milligrams for the entire day. Frank was hitting or exceeding that number at noon. He stared at those numbers for a long moment. Then he said, quietly, "I had no idea. I really had no idea." Here is what makes canned soup one of the most dangerous hidden sodium sources in the American pantry, particularly for older adults. It doesn't taste overwhelmingly salty. The flavors are diluted in liquid. It feels mild and comfortable and familiar. And the marketing on the packaging is often carefully designed to emphasize warmth, nostalgia, tradition, and wholesomeness. Words and imagery that never suggest you should be scrutinizing the sodium content. But those sodium numbers are not hidden on the label. They are right there on the back. We just don't look. Frank switched to preparing a simple homemade soup a few times a week. Nothing complicated, just chicken or vegetables in a no-salt added broth from his local Giant Eagle, with fresh or frozen vegetables added. On the days he wanted canned soup for convenience, he began buying the specific low-sodium varieties available in every major grocery chain across Ohio, which contained 410 to 450 milligrams per can rather than 1,700. The change to his blood pressure was measurable within 6 weeks. His log, which he still kept faithfully every morning, showed readings consistently between 131 and 138, a reduction of 15 to 20 points from switching soup. The third hidden salt bomb, deli meats and cold cuts. Let me tell you about Barbara, 65 years old, retired bank manager from Phoenix, Arizona. Barbara was someone I would describe, without exaggeration, as one of the most health-conscious patients in my practice. She ran 3 mornings a week, real running, not walking, through her Scottsdale neighborhood. She drank water consistently throughout the day. She avoided fast food almost completely. She had given up red meat 2 years earlier. Her blood pressure was 149/91. On medication, it had barely moved in 18 months. Barbara ate deli turkey almost every single day. She genuinely believed it was one of the cleanest proteins she could choose. Lean, low in fat, no visible salt added. A sensible choice for a health-conscious person. She typically had 4 slices on a salad for lunch and sometimes another 2 slices as a quick afternoon snack. When we looked at the label together, the numbers stopped her cold. 2 slices of the standard deli turkey she purchased from her grocery store in Phoenix, approximately 500 milligrams of sodium. 4 slices at lunch, 1,000 milligrams. 2 slices in the afternoon, another 500. From deli turkey alone, a food she considered clean and healthy, Barbara was consuming 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day, her entire recommended daily limit. And that was before breakfast, before dinner, before anything else she ate. Here's why deli meats and cold cuts are such a significant hidden sodium problem for older Americans. Sodium is used in processed deli products for preservation. It is not there to add flavor. It is there because without it, the product would not have the shelf life that makes it commercially viable. So every slice of turkey, ham, roast beef, and chicken breast sitting in that deli case contains sodium that has been worked into the meat itself during processing. You cannot taste it the way you can taste a potato chip. It is built into the texture and the cellular structure of the meat. And, when you eat 4 or 6 slices of it, you are ingesting more sodium than many people realize is even possible from what looks like a plain, unprocessed protein. Beyond turkey, the numbers for other popular deli options are even more dramatic. Regular deli ham typically carries 500 to 700 milligrams of sodium per 2-slice serving. Deli roast beef can contain 400 to 600 milligrams. Salami and other cured deli meats can reach 700 to 1,000 milligrams per 2-ounce serving. None of these foods taste salty in the way that a handful of pretzels does, but they carry a sodium load that compounds throughout the day every time you choose them. Barbara began shopping for specifically labeled low-sodium deli turkey, which her grocery store in Phoenix carried as a regular stock item and which contained approximately 50 milligrams of sodium per slice rather than 250. On days when she wanted to avoid deli meat entirely, she shifted to home-cooked chicken breast prepared without added salt, sliced and stored in the refrigerator for the week. Within 8 weeks, her systolic blood pressure dropped to 136. Her next appointment, it was 131. Her running hadn't changed. Her weight hadn't changed. Only the sodium in her deli choices had changed. The fourth hidden salt bomb: condiments, sauces, and salad dressings. Let me tell you about Gary, 73 years old, retired high school football coach from Atlanta, Georgia. Gary was a big personality, warm, funny, opinionated, the kind of man who made every waiting room more entertaining for everyone in it. He came in with his wife Linda, who had been managing his diet since his first high blood pressure diagnosis 4 years earlier. Linda was genuinely doing a heroic job. She cooked from scratch most nights. She had removed the salt shaker from the table. She had eliminated canned goods from their pantry in Atlanta almost entirely. She had switched Gary to fresh produce, lean meats, and whole grains. And she could not figure out, for the life of her, why his blood pressure had only dropped a modest few points after all of that effort. I asked Gary about his condiment and sauce habits. And that's where we found the problem. Every morning, Gary put 2 tablespoons of his favorite steak sauce on his eggs, 3 tablespoons of a bottled barbecue sauce at dinner a few nights a week when Linda grilled chicken, a generous pour of soy sauce on the rice that accompanied some of Linda's stir-fry dishes. Gary would describe it as just a splash, but when I asked him to show me what a splash looked like, it was closer to 2 tablespoons, a large squeeze of ketchup with his occasional baked potato. And on salad nights, Linda used what she considered a heart-healthy bottled Italian vinaigrette. We added those numbers together: 2 tablespoons of steak sauce, approximately 560 milligrams of sodium, depending on the brand, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, a genuinely astonishing 1,900 milligrams, 3 tablespoons of bottled barbecue sauce, roughly 450 milligrams, 2 tablespoons of bottled Italian vinaigrette, 480 milligrams, a single tablespoon of ketchup, about 160 milligrams. On a busy condiment day, Gary was adding 2,000 to 3,500 milligrams of sodium to otherwise relatively clean meals, without Linda knowing, without it ever tasting dramatically salty. This is the condiment trap, and it is one of the most consistently overlooked sodium sources in the American kitchen. Sauces and condiments are designed to be applied in small quantities, but those small quantities carry enormous sodium concentrations, because they are flavorings, not bulk foods, and they need to deliver maximum flavor impact in minimal volume. That concentration is exactly what makes them so dangerous when you use them generously. A tablespoon here, a splash there, another squeeze, another pour. The sodium doesn't announce itself, but it accumulates with every meal. Gary and Linda began reading the back labels on every condiment bottle in their Atlanta kitchen. They replaced the standard soy sauce with a reduced sodium variety, which cut the sodium per tablespoon from 920 milligrams down to 575. Still significant, but meaningfully lower. They found a no-salt barbecue rub for grilling that used smoked paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper to deliver the flavor Gary loved without a drop of sodium. They started making a simple homemade vinaigrette from olive oil, fresh lemon juice, garlic, and dried herbs. A preparation that Linda told me took about 90 seconds and tasted better than anything from a bottle. 10 weeks after that conversation in my office, Gary's systolic blood pressure was 137, down from 152. Linda cried a little at that appointment. Gary pretended not to notice that she did. The 5th hidden salt bomb: frozen meals and packaged convenience foods. Let me tell you about Helen, 70 years old, retired librarian from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Helen lived alone. Her husband had passed away 2 years before she first came to see me, and since then, the practical reality of cooking for one person had gradually steered her toward convenience foods. She wasn't lazy, she was grieving, adjusting, and frankly tired. Cooking full meals for one person every night felt overwhelming. Her solution, reasonable and understandable, was frozen meals. She bought the ones with pictures of vegetables on the front. She chose the ones marketed as healthy, balanced, lower calorie, and wholesome. She microwaved them for dinner 3 or 4 nights a week. On the other nights, she made simple things: a sandwich, a bowl of cereal, a can of soup. She thought she was managing acceptably. Her blood pressure was 162/95, on 2 medications. One of them was giving her persistent fatigue that was making her afternoon walks impossible. I asked Helen to bring me the packaging from her 5 most commonly eaten frozen meals. She brought a plastic bag full of them to our next appointment. She had saved the boxes specifically because I had asked her to. We went through each one together. The balanced chicken and rice meal she liked best, 1,340 milligrams of sodium. The turkey meatloaf dinner she considered a comfort food, 1,100 milligrams. The light pasta primavera with vegetables, 890 milligrams. The salmon and broccoli entree she chose because it sounded nutritious and sophisticated, 740 milligrams. The vegetable stir-fry bowl she selected specifically because she wanted to eat more vegetables, 1,210 milligrams. Even the lowest of those 5 options carried 740 milligrams of sodium in a single meal. The highest carried 1,340. And Helen was eating these dinners while also consuming breakfast and lunch, meals that were adding their own sodium to the total. On her worst days, her sodium intake was approaching 4,000 milligrams. On her average days, it was somewhere between 2,800 and 3,400 milligrams, still nearly double the 1,500 milligram daily limit recommended for older adults with high blood pressure. Here's the mechanism behind why frozen meals carry so much sodium. Sodium serves multiple functions in commercially prepared and frozen food. It preserves shelf life. It enhances flavor, which degraded during the freezing and manufacturing process. It improves texture, particularly in proteins and starches that can become mushy when frozen and reheated. And it is inexpensive, far cheaper than the natural flavor-building ingredients, fresh herbs, and quality fats that home cooks use to make food taste genuinely good. So when a food manufacturer is working to produce a meal that costs $4.99, tastes acceptable, has a 12-month freezer shelf life, and microwaves in 4 minutes, sodium is the ingredient they reach for again and again. The front label on the package will never tell you this. The front label says wholesome and shows a photograph of steaming vegetables in warm afternoon light. The truth is on the back, and it's always in the sodium line. We worked with Helen to build a simple 2-hour Sunday meal prep routine. She prepared a large batch of roasted chicken thighs, seasoned with garlic, rosemary, and lemon rather than salt, that she could portion into 4 dinners throughout the week. She cooked a pot of brown rice with no salt-added broth. She roasted 2 sheet pans of vegetables, sweet potatoes, broccoli, bell peppers, red onions, with olive oil and herbs. She stored everything in individual glass containers in her Minneapolis refrigerator. On nights when even that felt like too much, she kept a supply of pre-washed spinach and canned chickpeas, the no salt-added variety, for a quick salad that took 4 minutes and cost almost nothing. 3 months after that Sunday prep routine became her habit, Helen's blood pressure was 141/88. 6 months in, it was 132/80. Her doctor was able to reduce her second medication, the one causing the fatigue. Her afternoon walks, which had been stopped entirely, came back. She told me at one appointment that she had walked along the Mississippi River near her home in Minneapolis on a Tuesday afternoon and felt, for the first time in 2 years, genuinely well. I keep that particular sentence in my memory because it is exactly why I do this work. The physiology. Nobody explains completely your kidneys and what age does to them. Now I want to come back to the biology, because I've shown you 5 hidden salt bombs and the stories of 5 real people who discovered them, but I need to explain why, precisely, mechanically, this problem accelerates and worsens after the age of 60. Because when you understand the biology, you understand why every single one of those patient stories ended with blood pressure numbers that medication alone couldn't fully address. Your kidneys are, among their many responsibilities, the principal regulating organs of your sodium balance. When your sodium intake goes up, your kidneys detect the shift in blood chemistry and respond by increasing sodium excretion through the urine. This is the mechanism that is supposed to keep your blood pressure stable even when your sodium intake fluctuates. In a healthy young adult, this system is responsive and fairly efficient. But here's what happens with age. Beginning roughly in your 40s and accelerating through your 60s and beyond, the number of functioning filtration units inside your kidneys, called nephrons, gradually declines. Kidney mass itself decreases with age. The responsiveness of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which is the hormonal feedback loop that helps your kidneys manage sodium balance, becomes less precise. The result is that older kidneys are slower to detect sodium excess, slower to mobilize the excretory response, and less efficient at actually clearing that excess sodium from the blood before it has already driven blood pressure upward. This is the biological basis of age-related salt sensitivity, and it means that the relationship between sodium intake and blood pressure is not constant throughout your life. It steepens with age. The same quantity of sodium that your body handled reasonably well at 45 can produce a meaningfully larger blood pressure elevation at 68. This is not a deficiency or a disease. It is the normal, expected consequence of biological aging. But it is something that the American processed food industry has absolutely no financial incentive to help you understand. The practical consequence of this biology is straightforward. People over 60 with high blood pressure cannot afford to approach sodium the way their younger selves could. The daily limit of 1,500 milligrams that cardiovascular organizations recommend for older adults with hypertension is not an arbitrary or overly conservative number. It is based on the documented reality that reduced kidney efficiency and increased arterial stiffness make older adults more sodium sensitive, and that the blood pressure elevation from excess sodium has proportionally larger cardiovascular consequences in this age group: higher stroke risk, higher heart failure risk, higher kidney disease progression risk than in any other adult population. And yet the average American adult consumes approximately 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. That is more than double the recommended limit for someone over 60 with blood pressure concerns. And more than 70% of it is coming not from the salt shaker, but from the products filling the shelves of every grocery store in every city across this country. Take care of your body. It is the only one you have. And I will see you in the next video.